Irish for Wessex Blades. Just completed 2 Leuku handmade knives and leather sheaths. So if you've never invested in a handmade knife and like to see close up some elements of something that's handmade as opposed to mass produced, chumped out in a factory, stay tuned, because I'm going to be going over these close to camera and showing you the elements and the features of a handmade knife and a handmade, hand sewn leather sheath. Okay, so we'll start off this one here, which is in leather. Okay, and a leather is from a UK supplier, and it comes uncoloured, so this is hand dyed as well. Every hole has been punched, every stitch is locked, and it's all hand stitched. There's no machine that's been done on the stitching. That's the back. The belt loop goes over the top like that, and the belt can go through. I've also included a Nordic dangler, so that allows you a little bit of swivel, plus when you sit down at a chair, you got a lot more flexibility with how the blade moves. Okay, one feature that I do on the back is I don't stitch across there. I stitch up and down, putting a W for Wessex, sort of B for blades. You see it's a sort of a B shape there as well, but going across there will weaken the leather to a certain extent, so I don't stitch across too much if I can help it. So the up and the down doesn't have a series of weakening effects that way across there. So that's just one additional thing. Handmade allows you can be very particular about the way that you build it. It's not necessarily for an efficient way of making the build, it's to do it to give as much strength or as much beauty as you can. So with the U, obviously the U handle, there's a U ferro rod as well. And if we just start on the ferro rod, what I do is I've put a fillet of U down through the center. So we've got 2 blue liners and U down through the middle, rather than one section of something artificial in the middle. This allows me to get the ferro rod quite central, and then I've turned that. The U is stabilised, so it's got some resin in it and I've cured, so it's far more resilient. With a brass pin through there, there's a lot of effort just gone into making the ferro rod match the blade. And then if you have a look at the holster section at the time, at the side, I've got a very swoopy feel to it. It's not just a tab stuck out at a square, and they're sculpted as well, just to give it a bit more of an attractive appearance. So that goes down through, and then with the shock cord it won't come out. Moving on to the knife itself, it's a Leuku, my model Leuku, so it's in 4.7mm stock, 52-100. The 52-100 that I use is quite susceptible and gives a really nice mirror micro edge. So if you try and catch in a light the glint, can you see that micro edge right at the very tip of the blade edge? That is a micro bevel. So instead of the blade going like that, right at the tip, it ever so slightly crowns over, and it just protects the edge and makes it even more resilient and longer lasting. So the steel itself is a carbon steel, so it will rust, but when you've paid and invested in something like this, people know how to look after them, and they obviously keep it oiled, clean it down after use, and this will last a lifetime. It's in 4.7mm stock, so it's thick and strong, and it's skeletonized within the handle to reduce weight, and it also allows, when I use a marine epoxy, there's through gluing, so it's not just that the scales are glued to the steel and then the other side of the steel, the scale, the handle is glued to the other side of the steel. So the glue can pass through from one side to another, so it's actually held from both sides. And there's got 3 solid brass pins and a brass lanyard tube. So there's 4 connectors on either side, plus through gluing on stabilised U. Blue G10 with sort of a fiberglass liners, and that gives a nice handsome appearance to that. Leuku in U. So camp knife, chop in, but also for detail work. The narrow blade at this section will allow you to do fine sort of whittling, carving tasks, but it's got a bit more heft at the top end for doing chopping and splitting. So that's Wessex Blades Leuku. And then when you put it into the sheath, there's a lot of feel, and it's a pinch fit, so that the sheath is sort of moulded, and then the blade doesn't come out. So that's that one in U, and this one here is in English hardwood. I've got this one is in plum with a red liner. A bit difficult in this light to see. You can see again 3 stout solid brass pins with a lanyard tube at the end. If you catch the light, you should be able to see that it's quite shiny inside. So that's all been sort of cleaned out. This one's got a slightly different profile. And there's that micro bevel. A slightly different tip as well because of the clip front. Again, 52-100, 4.7mm, original stock, skeletonized handle. Even tip. Totally sculpted handle. Stabilised. Let's zoom in on this sheath. This one's in black. So black, it's blue. And even though this one, the option wasn't a dangler, I still add a D, just in case you want to put a halter clip in years to come. You've got that D fitted anyway. If you don't want to use it, just put it down out of the way, and it's out of the way. But you've got the option, if ever you opted and said, you know what, I hanker after a dangler loop, it's already there. You have to do a sort of a snap link or something, otherwise if that wasn't there fitted to begin with. So a bit of a close-up look to anybody that may be considering a handmade blade. I'm not the only one that makes handmade blades. There's plenty of people out in England now. It's a growing industry, flourishing in fact, getting more suppliers. There's a few societies on Instagram where people have took it upon themselves not only to promote the makers but also the suppliers at their own time and share their work. So I would encourage you to go on Instagram. There is a UK Knife Makers Guild, and there is a UK Society Cutlers as well, and I'll try and get the links in the description box so that you can follow that site and see, not just on YouTube, but there are actual different social media outlets for people like myself to show their work off and for people to see and then purchase through them and get yourself something that's handmade rather than made in a factory. So I hope that's shone a light and given a bit of attention on a handmade blade as opposed to a factory made blade. I'm Scott on Wessex Blades. This is my YouTube site. I'm also on Instagram, and I hope that's helped out. Scott Wessex Blades out.